We have a lot of other elements that add into a watch. So for example, we were talking about it before, so like a fusee chain. So there are complications on a watch, but can it still be considered a complication if its functionality doesn't change? So it still tells the time, it's not an additional function, i.e. your travel or an audio element, so the minute repeater. Do we still consider them complications?
I think that's one of those conversations that could go back and forth. I think we tried to confine ourselves here to just expressing complications in terms of things just beyond telling the time. One of the things you could argue, or some might argue, is a complication, which is certainly complicated, is a tourbillon. That doesn't really add anything to time telling other than accuracy, but it doesn't allow you to know what time it is in New York, or doesn't tell you where the moon is or anything. But a tourbillon, tourbillon means whirlwind in French, and it was, again, we come back to Breguet. He developed the tourbillon, I think in 1801, and effectively a tourbillon rotates the escapement, the balance wheel and the balance spring once every 60 seconds. And the original idea of that was when obviously clocks and pocket watches tend to be static, tend to be in one position. If it's in your pocket, it's in your pocket, and it's not really moving. And obviously gravity has an effect on mechanisms. And so the idea of rotating those key elements in the accuracy of a watch through this 60-second cycle was to nullify the effects of gravity. And that was the idea. Now, to miniaturize those into a wristwatch was obviously, again, a kind of technical tour de force by Breguet. Arguably slightly unnecessary in terms of timekeeping, because obviously a watch is worn on a wrist, so it's moving around more. So it's not static. But in terms of a watch brand's ability to position itself at the top of the tree in terms of producing amazing movements, then a tourbillon is one of those things that puts you right up there.
Elevates.
Yeah, I mean, it's in general there's around 40 components in a tourbillon, and they weigh less than a gram. So you're talking about really tiny parts. I think there was the Zenith Zero G watch, which had zero gravity watch, which had a tourbillon that rotated, I think, 360 degrees. It was in a round carriage, and I think that had like 164 parts in order to do something that's beautiful to look at, and has an impact on accuracy and improving timekeeping. But it was more about their ability to do it than just doing it.
Yeah, it's not a commercial piece, is it? It's interesting because we've referenced Zenith a couple of times, and I think they're not always at the forefront when thinking about either complications or sort of some others. They've recently brought out some pieces in the market that there's huge demand for, which is great. But they do have they're very legitimate within the industry.
For sure.
When you talk about the chronograph and the El Primero, they also were one of the three brands that only did the fusee chain. So Breguet were the first, Langenson, and then they did it in the Georges Favre-Jacques, and then the tourbillon that you've just spoken about. So it's interesting. Some of these smaller brands, not just Zenith, but some of these smaller brands really have a huge amount to offer anybody that's got an interest in horology. But sometimes we automatically think about the powerhouses and the pinnacles. Can a watch be too complicated, in your opinion? We talked about sort of the four main complications that we're familiar with, but we do see a lot where it's got this and it's got that and it's got that.
I mean, again, it's kind of, it's almost human endeavour. Why would you not want to try and do everything you possibly can? And watch brands do that. So you get minute repeating tourbillons, you get watches with celestial calendars. you know, some of the great complications, like the Henry Graves pocket watch from, oh God, way back, was one of the most complicated pocket watches ever made, and Vacheron made the most complicated wristwatch last couple of years, and I can't remember how many functions that had, but you know, everything from simply a perpetual calendar, tourbillon, minute repeater, sky charts. I mean, if you're able to do it, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's a good. So no is the answer. It can't be too complicated. Why wouldn't you? Gosh, your knowledge, what you have forgotten, most people would never remember in their life. It's incredible.
It's the thing that I've forgotten. It's always the things that I've forgotten that do worry me.